All right. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's had a good summer. We're back around the horseshoe. It's nice to see all these faces. However, we do have regrets from Councillor McGuire as well as Jen Brown tonight. So we will fill them in on our proceedings. We'll start off with our land acknowledgement. On September 24th, 2024, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for this land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. And with that, I will call the meeting to order at 6:04. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Does everybody, first of all, have a copy of said agenda? Okay, so we're going to approve that. So could I have someone move to approve that, please? Corey, thank you. Could I have someone second, please? Courtney, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. We'll move on. Adoption of minutes. Now, Director Clark, do we have June minutes?
That's a great question, Chair Bingley. No, I did not get my life together. So you will have this month's minutes and June's minutes as well. I had to go back and review check the tapes just to confirm a few things, and I didn't get around to doing that.
Okay.
So we'll approve them at the next meeting.
No problem. We'll defer that and we'll do it next time. We'll move on to disclosures of monetary interest. Does anyone have anything to disclose? No? Seeing none? Okay, so we'll move on to delegations, and we are very lucky to have a delegation this evening. So I'll call on Rob Moore from the Rural FASD.
So just before you stand up there, so your colleague is joining us as well, correct? At some point?
I have a colleague who is hopefully going to be here in the next 5 minutes or so.
Okay, do we want to bump and wait for them? Is that okay?
We can move on to our priority issues and
Just do the first one.
Do that. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
so we'll move on to priority issues. So 7A being the crosswalk placement update, and I believe that was the crosswalk involving C2.
Yes.
And I will let Director Clark lead that discussion.
Awesome. So thank you, Chair Bingley. So basically, after the meeting that this was brought up, I reached out to my colleagues in Public Works and said that this was the concern, and we chatted sort of back and forth. And then I asked for just some information that's written down, because I promptly forgot as much as they told me, so that I could forward it to you guys. So I did include it, but I've appended it here. And long story short, the advice at the time that the Beckwith Street was being reconstructed, sorry, I didn't turn this one on. I'll try. I might turn that one off. We'll see.
That one turned on and that one turned
Okay.
off earlier. Yeah, turn that one off.
Now we're getting on.
Okay. And now both of them are off. So essentially, at the time of the design, there we go. I guess they did look at it, and from what I understand, historically there was not a pedestrian crossing in that area. But during the discussion around the designs, it was felt that there was enough access across the roads. If you go up and you go down, I was told that's north and south, and usually north is whatever direction I'm facing. So in this case, I was correct, north and south. So that because of the distance between that intersection and the controlled intersections immediately north and south, there wasn't a need at that particular space for a controlled intersection. Now, I'm not very well versed in the whole situation, but from what I understand, it was related to traffic flow. And it was related to the potential impact if we're constantly stopping on the traffic lights and things like that. So all that is to say, it doesn't sound like there is a PXO that is planned for that area. We would probably have to go back and do some redesign, and I don't think we want to do that at this point, but I would, I know you were probably part of the conversation, so you may have something to add as well, but that was what I was advised.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for that. Is there any questions or comments?
What area are we talking about again here?
In front of C2.
Oh, okay.
William and Beckwith.
Yeah.
Mayor Panko.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, there was a lot of discussion in 2018-19 about the redesign of the street. And so the original plan did have a crossing there. And there was a lot, as I recall, a lot of debate discussion about the street at the time. And there was concerns about traffic flows. There was fears, or I say probably misguided fears, that because of the change in parking configuration, that cars would be backed up forever on the street waiting for someone to back into a parking spot, which obviously has not been a big issue. But I think the compromise at the time to some extent was, well, if we don't put the PXO or the crossing here, there's better ways of ensuring flows going through. And if anybody drives up or down Beckwith now, you can start and proceed right through in many cases without getting stopped. And there was concern that would impact that. Not that in my mind, slowing people down or stopping is necessarily a bad thing. But usually I think the last number I had for Beckwith was about 20,000 vehicles a day. So there's just concerns that it may end up causing more traffic. But I would say we've had some informal discussions about it with council. I don't think we're opposed to potentially revisiting it again if this committee thought it's an essential crossing. I do recall, I think the intersection, the in-ground work to enable it was completed as part of the redesign. So if we ever decide we want to put one there, it could be possible. But it would also be the cost, and I think at the time it was, well, a regular PXO was not that much when you got it, where you've just put it on a street, where you're not having to change the arrangement. Here we would need to change the arrangement where the nodes are, the flowers are. So it'd be a lot more work to do it. I think the time is about $200,000 to do it. I'm not sure what the number would be today, but anyway, that's sort of my comments. If any questions, I can help as well.
That was very knowledgeable. Wasn't aware of some of those things, so thank you, Mayor Vango. And certainly it's a good thing that the infrastructure is there if we ever wanted to revisit it. Is there anyone else? Corey?
So I have a question. What made council decide to put the crossing here at Town Hall instead of at William?
That was part of the original design, was to put it.
It was
put PXO here,
Okay.
and the proximity to Tim Hortons, Burger King, a lot of the foot traffic that crosses, and to be a long stretch to go from Russell to Beckwith and Elmsley, where the next crossing would be, right? So, and we know, frankly, people cross anyway, cross middle of the block. They still cross at William. We looked into it, I think it was last year, to check on the number. I think it was last summer. It was last summer or earlier this year. Last summer, I think it was. We had some of our summer students go out and just track the number of people crossing there to see, like, there's a lot of people who aren't obeying it because it's a shorter way. And I don't think the numbers were that significant, but we could probably get that for another meeting. But all that said, Again, it's convenient to have people thinking they can get top of Beckwith and get right through downtown before having to stop. That might be nice. But at the same time, having a PXO would slow traffic probably, and traffic's going slower is always good for pedestrian safety and cyclist safety and people on using mobility devices. And it's probably not a bad thing.
Is there anybody else? I do myself have a couple of comments, but I give everybody equal opportunity, so if anyone has anything? No? I did, when I was listening there, I did think, is there a way to indicate that that is not currently a pedestrian crossing? Have some sort of signage there or something just to identify this isn't not a crosswalk, because there are people that are crossing there, particularly, well, everybody, but particularly tourists. They don't know that there is 2 other opportunities to have a crosswalk. So I just wondered, in terms of liability, take some of the liability off the town. Well, it was indicated that it is just not a crosswalk and you crossed and something happened. So, would that help our case somehow?
I would have to check with, I guess, some of the requirements under MTO or our policy director McMahon to know more about the implications of putting signage there. I mean, it is, of course, it's not marked for a crosswalk. There's no sidewalk leading to the road edge there. So a lot of things that indicate that people should know it's not a crosswalk. But we know human behavior is, if you're on that side and you want to go to the bank, or on this side you want to go to say 2, most people will not walk up and back down. I do.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of some people just want to go the shortest distance possible. But I guess a question back to the committee, because I missed the last meeting. I assume this is when this came up. Is it because just curiosity, or does it seem like it is making difficult? Is it creating a barrier that council should consider removing and correcting?
Does anybody have any comment? Whether it's on the issue that you faced or just something that you've observed? Courtney?
I mean, I'll say, just personally myself, going uptown is like an incline. So like if I want to go up to the crosswalk and I'm by myself, I kind of have to propel myself up the hill to get there. So it would, for myself, and again, I don't speak for everyone, but like having a crosswalk down there might be more beneficial for myself, so I don't have to go up a big hill and around and then back down to cross the street down there if I wanted to go somewhere.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm thinking, just trying to think back to our last meeting. I think we did find it was an issue that it would be a good safety feature to have a crosswalk in that area. I also know there's a lot of change going on in town now with that new apartment building that's absolutely beautiful. They have a fitness center in it. It's a beautiful building. SAG-2 obviously is another big tourist attraction, as well as well used in town, I believe. Boomtown, which might draw some more of the tourist population as well. So I think some of those are the reasons that a crosswalk in that area or an indication of a safe place to cross would be a good thing to have. Does anybody have any questions, comments further?
I would have a comment to add, just with the RBC Bank being right there too. I
Yeah,
think for elderly people or anybody even with a walker, I don't think they're gonna walk up a street to walk back down to get to the bank. I think they're gonna take the closest route possible to it, which
Creates more danger if you're
Absolutely.
trying to get across.
chances are they're stopping traffic anyhow.
And I guess that's a good reason why this committee raised this issue and can provide perspective that maybe wasn't fully considered before, I think to some extent. So I guess the question is, where do we go from here? And I don't know if there is, like we know there's barriers across town in so many places, and we're slowly chipping away, literally chipping away in some places to hammer out concrete, but chipping away at trying to reduce those and make things more barrier free. And when we do new work, of course, even we're seeing the work done around downtown this summer, even with paving and curbs and sidewalks, it's all done to try to enable accessibility and mobility. But I guess the question becomes, does this committee want to take a stand here then? And Lucy, you made Madam Chair, a good comment that you think it is a barrier, but I don't want to be the one to initiate anything here. I think if you guys think something should be considered, then the committee has the right to do that.
So to that end, does the committee, through the chair, want to make a recommendation to bring this forward to council,
I'll be right back.
or do we want to leave it for now?
does
My work-
anybody have any thoughts? Courtney?
Is there a way that we can like get the public's opinion too to see if they would
That
find
will be
it?
up to council's discretion, I think.
Because like I don't want it to seem like we're saying, oh, because it's difficult for us or like for me that we should put a crosswalk in here. Like I said, I speak for myself. I find it would be beneficial to have one there, but I don't know about everybody else in town too.
Stephanie?
I'm gonna go with the unpopular opinion. It is a main highway. We have multiple access already. I know we would love to have access everywhere. But when you think of the flow of traffic of downtown and the access points that we already have for pedestrians to cross, is it truly a necessity, or is it something that would simply be nice just because some people don't have the ability to get to the next crosswalk, but some people don't want to. We just had it's not long ago that this whole downtown was renovated and redone for, the structure and everything that had to be done for the flow, and all of those were looked at and reviewed and have been discussed multiple times with the council already, not very long ago. Is it something that we feel that really needs to be brought to the attention at this time, or put into place for future plans down the road when they're looking at having to do we don't really call them renovations, what do we call them? When we have to do rework downtown or whatever on any of the side roads or whatever that are eventually going to be done as well. Is it something that can be put into place for the future instead of looking at it now when we've so recently had it all redone?
Does anyone have any other perspectives? Mayor Benko?
Well, maybe it's a sidebar question that maybe I can't remember if we've done it yet, but how much consultation have we done with the community to understand where the barriers are to accessibility and where we need to focus our energy and our investment? And there's probably a number of areas in town where many of you would be aware is a challenge today. And I wonder if this simply could be part of a broader conversation in trying to engage the community, especially those living with disabilities, people living with physical limitations, requiring some degree of mobility aid, I mean, the best way for council to understand how we need to improve accessibility and where we need to address barriers and limitations is that kind of feedback. And so I wonder if maybe it's more of a generic approach to say to the community, please complete this survey. We could identify certain areas that we know are challenges today and say, is this a problem for you? And try and get some feedback. I mean, council is going to be responsive to the needs of the community and balance that with all the work and projects we need to do and all the costs we have and our constituents' ability to pay. But in the end, information is very important. It can help guide us to some better decisions. That's why this committee exists, right? We formed an accessibility advisory committee because we want to understand the needs of the community to ensure that we do reduce barriers. We do try to make their community as accessible as possible. And when we did it, it wasn't simply to meet AODA requirements, as we must do with certain things. It's more a matter of trying to ensure that our community works for everybody.
So I think to summarize what I'm hearing, perhaps maybe a survey on, I don't know what the best outlet would be, perhaps Speak Up Smith Falls or something along those lines, and then we can sort of compile those results and make our decision from there. Is that?
Those are the details that staff, our communications coordinator and Stephanie would work together to figure out.
Is that something that everybody would
That was kind of what I was
Like,
getting at,
see-
with like asking the community and
yeah.
people who live with disabilities, would it be handy to have this here?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
and that's, I guess, when you look at what has been happening with sidewalks and curb cutouts, and it's all designed to try to help meet the needs of our community. Even the sidewalk along Lumber and going towards Victoria Park and Lower Reach Park, at your Lower Reach, of course, at Old Slides. All these things are designed that way, but getting more feedback probably helps get better decisions. So perhaps maybe the action, Madam Chair, is we could, staff could put some work into how this could happen and bring it back to the next meeting for, I guess, consultation with the group and then prepare to launch it.
That would be-
In the meantime, I think if survey the committee to try and understand where maybe where some of the identified problem areas are in town.
Yeah, that all sounds great. Yeah,
Do we want to go to these guys?
yeah, sure. So I think we've had a very rich discussion about that crosswalk, and Director Clark, if you could initiate that survey, that'd be wonderful. And given that our guests have arrived, I think we will pause the priority issues and revert back to the delegation. So I'll welcome Rob Moore from the Rural FASD Network to come and say a few words, and I understand he's brought a colleague with him.
Yes. So first of all, I want to introduce to you Jane Stoddard. She is the manager of our office here in Smith Falls. We actually lease space out of Open Doors, just right there on Cornelia Street. So if you, as you're driving by, if you see that Rural FASD sign in the windows there, you know where our offices are located. And we have two other staff members that work with us as well. So Jane serves as the manager. Depending on the questions that you may ask for me afterwards, I may defer to her. So we'll see how that goes. So in terms of our presentation or our delegation for tonight, I will just want to take a couple minutes and share with you who or what Rural FASD is. And then following that, tell you a little bit about, I guess, our ask regarding to the National Accessibility Week we're looking at planning a fairly large event during Monday, May 26th, and what that's going to entail. So to begin with, in terms of Rural FASD, we were formed, we became a nonprofit corporation back in 2019, so we're in our 5th year of existence right now. Right now, we are supporting just over 650 people in the counties of Lanark and Leeds-Grenville. We know from research that FASD is it's about 5% of our population is living with this disability right now. So to put that in perspective, in Smith Falls, you're talking about 500 people. There was a study that just came out this past year where it's now been determined 98% of those individuals living with the disability are currently undiagnosed in Ontario. So again, to put that in perspective, 480 of those 500 people don't actually know they're living with this disability right now. So that is why our focus very much is on the awareness piece. We know that is the first step. And so off of that, some of the messaging we try to get folks to understand is, number one, to get a diagnosis of FASD, you're actually going to have 3 different disabilities. There's going to be a physical disability component, there's going to be a communication or language disability component, and then there's going to be a intellectual or cognitive disability component involved with that. And then finally, there actually has to be documented trauma within their childhood. And if you have all 4 of those, then you get the diagnosis of FASD. So that is why it is described as a severe disability. And when we look at some of the statistics involved with the impact of people with severe disabilities, we know 70% of them are living below the poverty line. We know that 80% of them are accessing food banks right now because of food insecurity. We are seeing that in our membership, without a doubt. And so the other piece that I wanted to share with you as well, though, is right now, Jane, as well as our office, as well as our staff, we were successful in getting a Trillium fund about 2 years ago. We still have about 1.5 years left on it. So we're very much looking at that sustainability model, trying to figure out who's our next partner from funding standpoints and so on. But right now, because of that, we were actually honored by Trillium this past year. We went through, they do a full audit on all the organizations that they fund, and they actually named us their the #1 scale organization that they're funding in Ontario right now. And it's because of our financial infrastructure, it's because of the way our policies and procedures are set up, and it's also based upon how good we are at being able to recruit and help and support people that are accessing our services. So with that, what we're really looking to do, and I'm going to jump you down to the final slide there at this point. What we're really looking to do is we're really looking to bring out awareness regarding accessibility. We know from AODA, there's actually 7 categories that folks need to be aware of from an accessibility standpoint. We're talking about there has to be plain language. It's communication and language. There has to be accessibility from the design and delivery of programs. So for example, if you're going into the medical clinic, is it designed in such a way that someone, for example, has a sensory challenge? If you're asking them to sit in a waiting room with 20 other people, and they're going to sit there for 30 minutes waiting for their service to come about, I can tell you right now, most people living with FASD are not making it to see the doctor. They are leaving that room long before they ever get in to see them. That's actually a component of built environment. When we talk about built environment, there's a lot of different aspects involved with that. How loud is it? What are the lights like? We see frequently the youth that we work with cannot handle fluorescent lighting. There is something about the pulsing and the sounds that come off of those bulbs that it's just too much. And so again, they're not going to be there for that. When we also talk about in terms of accessing websites, when we talk about transportation, these are all components regarding AOTA and that accessibility piece. And they're not things that people readily think about. And so that's really what this event is about, is just starting to bring that awareness piece out and getting people talking about this, recognizing that even though you may not, you may not necessarily be able to see it or feel it, doesn't mean it doesn't actually exist, because somebody else absolutely is feeling and seeing it. So how are we looking at doing this? So last year, we did a trial run, what we called the Red Shoe Run. So if you ever see someone, I don't have them on me right now, I have to get a new pair, but if you ever see someone wearing the old red Converse shoes, that's actually the international symbol for someone living with FASD. So if you ever see someone wearing those red Converse shoes around, they're either looking to bring awareness about FASD or they're actually living with the disability. And so that's where the Red Shoe Run comes about. And so we did the very first one actually over in Montague Public School last year. And we did it on a little bit of a smaller scale. We still had 330 people show up for it. But what we discovered was there was a few things we definitely have to tweak the next time that we do this. And the biggest one that we found was asking our youth and our adults living with FASD to be able to run a station, to be able to kind of help with that particular event and manage those aspects is too much. They weren't able to do that. And so we recognize at that point, we actually need really third-party volunteer people who want to support, people who want to give their time, who want to show up and demonstrate their support for these individuals. And at the same time, allow our folks to be able to be in places where they can succeed, where they can have the one-on-one conversation with somebody that wants to learn about the disability, where they can walk around wearing their shirt with pride, and being able to say, yes, I'm someone who's living with FASD right now. Come talk to me. And so that's really what we're looking at for this upcoming year, is we're going to have them kind of serve as ambassadors. We need other people who can serve in terms of actually running these stations. So on Monday, May 26th, what we've got set up so far is we are hoping to be able to rent Lower Reach Park for that morning. In fact, if you look upstairs up there, we actually use Google Maps to kind of figure out how long the loop is just around that initial lower section of Lower Reach Park. And we actually figured out it's exactly 1 kilometer. So we're looking at doing a 1 kilometer run walk, basically kind of going along the lake shore, jumping down there past the basketball, on the other side of the basketball hoops and back around again. At the same time, we are also looking at having 2 other events kind of going on in the interior. And from there, we have already entered into conversations with Upper Canada District School Board and CDSBO. And right now, we have verbal commitment from both of the local trustees, as well as the local superintendents, that we think we're going to be able to have all the grade 4, 5, 6 students from all 4 area schools. So Duncan J, Chimo, Montague Public, which we're going to be able to provide some money to bus them over, and then finally St. Francis. And so we're looking at having, there's essentially going to be about 700 people, 700 kids, grades 4 through 6. We're planning on showing up that day. And so off of that, we also are going to have some informational booths set up. Kids Inclusive has already committed to it. The Public Health Unit has already committed to it. We're going to have a booth there. We would love for you folks to have a booth there and share a little bit about the Accessibility Committee and who you guys are and what you're looking at doing here. And then at the same time, we would also do a lot of advertising because it is very much a public event. Anybody can come to it, but we're really focusing on making sure that those grade 4, 5, 6 students are the ones that are present. We have a formal commitment from the Knights of Columbus. I was just there last week, and they got back to me a couple days ago and said, yeah, we're in. They've got a subcommittee. They're going to be bringing in some of those third-party volunteer folks. I'm supposed to have a conversation next month with Smith Falls High School, and we are anticipating that we're going to be able to get some folks coming off of there. And then we're also having some conversations with Calvary Bible Church and some of the folks that help out there. So it looks like at this point, we're not finding any particular obstacles stopping us from being able to accomplish this. And really, I guess at this point, my ask for you folks would be to help us around number one, the marketing and the advertising piece. Number two, definitely need some insight from you guys around the accessibility piece. When we start to plan this route out and what the day is going to look like, we want to hear from you as to how this needs to be set up. And then finally, anybody within your networks that you know that would be willing to come out and help and volunteer and run that day, we're taking anybody. Okay.
So a couple things, and the reason we want to tie this into National Accessibility Week is when we think of accessibility, when employers now think of AOTA, we think first and foremost about physical disabilities. Let's help this, crosswalks, whatever, make it. And one thing that's overlooked is the silent disabilities. And we really need to bring that forward. And like Rob said, something as simple as lighting, something as basic as an environment that you have somebody waiting in. COVID was a strange time because, it was so bad. However, it gave us a whole bunch of technological advances, and it also gave us people who have those sensory issues, the quiet, the separation, made them actually be able to participate a little bit better because people weren't touching them, people weren't so close. They got their bubble and they got to be able to not be overwhelmed. And even since then, people will still give you a bit more space. You still get your bubble a little bit better than what we did, say, in 2018, even, or in 2019. So one of the things with the accessibility piece is we want to go further with, when we read the AOTA guidelines, these type of accessibility things are there, but they're overlooked, for the more things that you see. And we need to push forward these invisible disabilities and the accessibility for people with the invisible disabilities as well. So I think partnering with especially this committee going forward and working with you going forward, I think we can, help each other out because we are working on this. We are, talking to our membership and saying, what makes things easier for you? One of the things with Rural FASD that's extremely, extremely important is the direct voice. We're not going by research. I mean, of course there's research, but our people are either on our board, either have FASD, they're caregivers for people with FASD, or they're related to people with FASD. This is a real lived experience. When we talk to our people and say, what makes your life better, and we want to really bring that forward during National Accessibility Week. So it's, let's bring those hidden disabilities forward. So those accessibilities can help them.
Right. Well, thank you, Rob and Jane there, for your wonderful presentation. lot of interesting points in there that I certainly wasn't aware of, and not sure would have been thought of. So thank you for that. Is there any questions or comments for Rob or Jane or I?
I have a quick
Corey.
question. So you mentioned the high school that you guys are gonna go speak to them. Would this count towards their hours that they need to graduate?
Yes.
40
That's
hours?
what we want.
Yes.
We want that support with those kids.
I'm just kind of curious, why the focus on grades 4 to 6?
Fantastic question. I'm glad you asked. So I'm going to throw a. So I do a lot of research, and there's some of the knowledge that floats around in my head is a little bit unique, I think. But the first one is I happen to know that 85% of the time, when someone has established an opinion as to whether that opinion is right or not. So if someone's established a perspective, 85% of the time, you're never going to be able to convince them that they need to change their perspective. So once someone, and it really pertains to that first impression, it really pertains to once someone has made up their mind, you're only going to successfully be able to change that mind. And it doesn't matter what evidence you show, it doesn't matter what documentation you show, it doesn't matter on any of it. Once they have set up their mind, 85% of the time, you're never going to be able to change them again. That number decreases the younger you get. So when you start looking at high school students will generally hold on to their opinion about 60% of the time. Whereas when you get into ages 10 to 12, in grades 4 through 6, they have very much open minds. And so when we look at our society today, and I recognize here in Smith Falls, we are a very, very unique environment. And I love the fact, and I completely attest to the fact that the success of Rural FASD is completely based on the fact we are in Lanark County because of Rideau Regional Institute. It was 10 years ago, we were institutionalizing people living with disabilities. And so just about every adult in Lanark County has a formed opinion that is really based upon what happened there. It was wrong. It was completely wrong. It should never have happened in the first place. We all know we all have strengths. We are all unique. If we are put in environments where we can succeed, we will succeed. You never want to ask me to repair your car, ever. But if you ask my son, who is 17 years old, who is very much in the severe category of FASD, to repair your car, he can absolutely do it. And in fact, he's writing his Red Seal exam this year as a heavy equipment mechanic. Now, is he reading at a grade 2 level? Yes. Is he ever going to get beyond that? No. But he has this skill, and when you put him in that environment, very much can succeed. Grades 4 through 6 have not formed their opinions. Grades 4 through 6 are going to get introduced for the first time what really accessibility means. They've also never been in a situation where people living with disabilities are not completely incorporated within their lives. They are all ages 10, 11, 12. we have had a completely inclusive community for 10 years now. And so they've never known any other world other than people living with disabilities, living with people without disabilities. And so the thought at this point is those grade 4, 5, and 6 students, if we can do this event successfully, it's very much our intention. We want to do this every year for the next 2 decades or however long we can make this thing run. And so the idea then would be those grades 4 through 6 students, well, they're going to hit grade 7. They're going to go to Smith Falls High School. They're going to remember this wonderful event that they went to. And now all of a sudden, when you look at our logic model, what we have determined in order to create change, there's 4 steps. You have to start with awareness or education. Sorry, you have to start with an awareness piece. Second, you've got to go to education and training, where people actually understand it intimately and come to an understanding. Third, that leads to fellowship. That leads to relationship. Now people have taken that knowledge and they want to be part of this. They want to be part of the group, the committee. And then finally, now you do skill development, where they actually figure out, okay, now what do we actually have to do to create the change? That's why Rural FASD has grown from 6 people to 650 people in 5 years. We use that model every single time, and we are seeing the results and the success of doing so. And so those 10, 11, 12-year-olds, we're going to do the awareness now. In 2 years, now we're going to do the education and training, because they're going to be in high school. Hopefully they're going to do volunteers. In 10 years, they're going to be the agents of change. They're going to create a whole new world that none of us have ever seen before, because they have seen what that path needs to be. So that's why in our discussions, we were like, yeah, it's got to be the 10 to 12-year-olds. That's who we want to target right now. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting facts there. Just one question, if I could. If somebody were to access the FASD network, how would they be referred or go about doing that?
So what happens is we have a program coordinator in our office. Her name is Judith. She's a social worker, and she coordinates everyone. So she will meet with someone either virtually or in person, and there's an intake. So she has an in-depth conversation with them, and she finds out their family, their history. Are they diagnosed? Do they suspect? Do they know? And then from there, we talk to them and see where is the best, what services do they need? Do they have ODSP? Can we get them? And we set that up for them. We'll walk them through that. Paperwork is horrible. I mean, it's horrible for someone that's normal. For someone that's neurodivergent, paperwork is, and who has anxiety, it is just, it's undoable. And so she walks them through that. Then everything, of course, is depending on our funding. So, and how much, so what services we can refer to and what services we can pay for on behalf of somebody. And so, and she coordinates and walks them through, follows up. And once they become a member, they're always a member. They're always part of our family. We do monthly peer support meetings right here in Smith Falls. We also have them on Zoom. We have, every time we have a speaker. This last meeting was amazing. We have a wonderful girl named Shannon, who just recently moved to Perth, who got diagnosed with FASD at 33. And she tells her story, and her story is heartbreaking and tragic and amazing and resilient. And so in going from this, she's actually joined our group, and she's going to be working with our youth, our 17 to 20 and older people with FASD, and because she's developed a program to help people who have FASD or have cognitive, developmental, mental health issues, navigate themselves first, and then navigate the world around them. And this is a piece that we forget as a society is a lot of people don't know how to navigate themselves. We expect them to navigate everything out there, but they can't even navigate what's going on in here. So and that's where we go. So we have to help people with themselves first. And that could be counseling, that could be just listening, that could be leaving them alone and letting them think and come back and ruminate and go back and forth. But we work with them, and then we work with a lot of service providers in Eastern Ontario, and we're making more partnerships and developing relationships every day.
Wonderful. Sounds wonderful.
I would add in, by the way, we did record Shannon's presentation. If you go to our YouTube channel, you should watch it.
I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, she is beyond articulate.
And then there's another example of someone, I mean, her speech, her ability to write, amazing. She can't do math, so one part of the brain, no good, couldn't get through school, everything. But to hear her speak, to hear the words she can articulate, amazing.
Well, I do encourage everybody to check that out. Mayor Panko.
Yeah, thanks, Rob and Jane. And I say I have personal knowledge of what's been happening to some extent, but I really appreciate the presentation tonight because it's given me a great deeper understanding of the progress you've made. And I'll put you on the spot for a moment, Rob, just to, even if you don't want to talk about your own journey to here today, because we met, I don't know what it was, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and long before you were incorporated, and when you were a dad with a big heart, doing a lot of great things. And then maybe a bit of the science behind this as well, because as you've described it, it's not well known, not well diagnosed. And things I'm hearing, I see so many parallels with people who are diagnosed with on the spectrum with autism, and I'm sure there must be a connection here somewhere because I have a granddaughter who is, and some of the things they're talking about, I see that in her. But if you just comment on some of that, and I guess the dream, I mean, because you've come so far to get to where you are today, but obviously this is not a destination, not the end.
Okay, how long do I have?
Well, I know.
Okay, so let me start with this. Yes, Sean and we first talked, I think you're right, I think it was 8 years ago now. Oh my goodness. And at that point, we had just started to clue in to the fact that our oldest daughter was struggling. And there was a lot of a misunderstanding at that point as to what was happening there. Life was scary. She was running away. She was getting into strangers' cars. We got to know the Smith Falls Police Force very well at that point, as well as the OPP detachment. There was my wife suffered a mental health breakdown following that, and it took her about a year to be able to recover from that. From there, we finally got the diagnosis, and it was only because we went to the CHEO emergency for the 5th time in 3 months, and at that point, there was a nurse there who somehow knew something about FASD, and in the notes just made a note about possibly looking at this, and that was really that was the starting point. From there, we We went through that whole process. Took us a year and a half. By the time we finally got the diagnosis and started to get all the help, still continue to run into a lot of situations. CHEO psychiatrist told us that she was just being a teenage girl and there was nothing wrong here. Discharged us. From there, we finally got the diagnosis. And I think a lot of you probably know, after you get the diagnosis, you're handed that sheet of paper about all the community resources that you can tap into and talk to. Well, the sheet of paper we were handed had one organization listed on it. And it was on the east side of the city of Ottawa. And so we were like, okay, this is not really helpful. So it was at that point that Shelley, the public health unit, had put an advertisement in the EMC about this FASD working group that they were wanting to start to create, and they were wanting to get some public consultation. Shelley decided to go to that meeting, and at that meeting there was she met two other area families that we didn't know, and they all started, the three of them all started kind of getting together, and then we met a fourth family right after that, and basically our stories were all exactly the same. And so it was at that point that we said, okay, we got to do something. Like, we had no idea what we were doing, but we just decided, you know what, we're just going to start telling our story, and we're going to see what the response is, and we're going to see what happens from there. Sean, I think, was the third or fourth person ever that I had spoken to at that point. And what I remember the most, and I'm sure you will not remember this, but what I remember the most was you were the one who gave me a lot of direction on how to navigate the politics of municipalities in the province and at the federal level. And I walked away from that meeting going, okay, I got a plan now. I know who to go after and who to talk to and so on. 6 months after that, we got hooked up with Stephen and Donna Bennett here at H&R Block, and they were absolute lions going after the DTC and the CCB and all of that. And because of the work that they did, oh my goodness, did the CRA ever try to, they were tough. But Donna refused to give up. And eventually we got to the point where we got 10 years. We got 10 years of funding back as a result. And that, at that point, gave us that nest egg that we actually had something to work with. We actually had some money to start going after some things now. And then it just, it's kind of gone from there. We were able to, all three of the children have been accepted into passport funding. All three children are now receiving the DTC. I will tell you that they got rejected twice for the DTC, and we had to appeal both times. And finally, on the third one, and Scott Reed did some yeoman work there too. And then, in the same way with passport funding, we got rejected initially. No one knew what FASD was. Like, they didn't understand it and the impact that it was having on the children's lives. And eventually we got folks to kind of understand this. And it's just, it's continued to grow, and it just grows and it grows. And every single time, Jane was asking the other day about how many people are we connected with now? Thousands. I think it's thousands now. In terms of every medical professional that you can think of, we have a contact. Every service provider you can think of, we have a contact now. And it's all been driven by the families, because every single family is going through the same route, and they meet somebody else and they have those conversations. And then this monthly meeting is the core of all of it. Like Calvary Bible Church they were one of the very early ones, and they basically said, you know what, you're using the facility for free. We're going to take care of the liability insurance for you. We're going to take care of all of this. You need a place to meet and talk. And so every month, I always make the statement that it is my absolute honor and privilege to be able to serve as the spokesperson for all these individuals. Most people cannot stand here and do this type of presentation. I can. And so it is my honor and privilege to share their stories. And it's my honor and privilege to be able to help people understand what it's like. I will say this, as of today, I am a grandfather, and my oldest is doing an absolute fantastic job being a mom to 16-month-old Emma. And they're right on the main street, folks. I know about that RBC crosswalk, by the way, and the baby stroller going through there. So my middle daughter, and she also, and just so that you know, she's taking a break from her job right now. She's actually got a university degree in equine massage therapy. And my middle daughter graduated from Algonquin College, and she's living on her own in Almont. And she had been working full time in a bakery. That was what her degree is in baking and pastry arts. She found at this point 40 hours a week is too much. She can't do 40 hours a week. 20 is going to be more her speed. So that's what we're kind of looking at right now with her. And then, like I said, my son Jacob is graduating from St. Luke's. We were talking the other day about, unfortunately, I think my 12-year span on St. Luke Parent Council is finally coming to an end this year. So, because all 3 kids went through St. Luke's, and again, they have been fantastic. I think I just answered question number 1. Question number 2 was, well, I'll jump to question number 3.
Okay.
So in terms of the goal, it boggles my mind sometimes. So I was at the FASD International Conference in Saskatoon this past November. We have representation at the other international FASD conference in Seattle, and this past April. One of the things that I have is I have 2 master's degrees, and right now I'm serving as a vice principal at a Catholic elementary school in Ottawa right now. So I have I have a fair amount of knowledge. I was asked by the national organization called CanFAS. I'm the one who writes all of their online curriculum and courses. So there's really not an FASD researcher in the world that I don't have their phone number for. So I have access to a lot of information as a result. And so what the part that stands out the absolute most for me is, folks, there is more awareness, and we are bigger here in Lanark County than literally anywhere in Canada. I can't get over this. So September 9th is FASD Awareness Day. It's recognized by the province. It's recognized in Canada. It's recognized across the world. They did a walk in Toronto from basically Union Station up to Queen's Park this past September 9th. They had 125 people show up for it. They had another event in Ottawa, right in Britannia Park. They had 225 people show up for it. I can tell you the largest FASD event in the world ever was in Vancouver for the international conference 5 years ago before COVID. They had 766 people there. We're going to beat it, guys, in Smith Falls. Like I'm telling you, on Monday, May 26th, we're going to beat it. We are going to have the largest FASD event in the world ever. And everybody, the amount of phone calls and the amount of people from around the world who contact me in rural FASD is crazy. And they're all asking the same thing, like, how are we doing it here? How are we doing it here? And it's just, and the only thing I keep coming back and saying is we have community. Like we have lots and lots of folks who want to help, who want to come together, who want to make a difference. And when you combine all of that knowledge capacity, all that knowledge together, yeah, we're going to change the world. And it's going to come right out of Smith Falls, folks. And so that's the goal. We are going to continue to grow this.
So on my part, the goal is going back to that piece of 95% of people who have FASD are not diagnosed.
Yep.
Those kids are in foster care. Those kids have been taken away from their families because of the abuse, but then they're put into foster care. That's it. They don't know what to do with them. There's no more help. There's no knowledge for the foster parents about what could be happening about FASD. There's no support through the foster care system for diagnoses of these issues that they're seeing, these behavioral problems that they're seeing in these young children. They're just, well, they have trauma, yes, and they've been pulled, yes, but it goes deeper than that. So if children need to be taken into foster care, that because of alcoholism in the family, that they're already put on the track to be to have an FASD diagnosis. So, and then before anybody is fostering or adopting, they already have the supports and the grounds right from a young age. Instead of being an adult and fighting to get a diagnosis, or a family with teenagers and fighting to get a diagnosis. One of the things that Rob didn't mention about being able to get a diagnosis, it has to be confirmed alcohol consumption during pregnancy. And if you don't have confirmation, if someone's a hidden drinker, she's embarrassed, and then that's one more step of stopping people from getting help and getting a proper diagnosis. So we want that to stop happening. Of course, ideally, we would love no one to ever be born with FASD again. No drinking while, no amount of alcohol is safe when drinking. We just don't know what the threshold is. So none. Well, in a real world, that's not going to be ever a thing because of generational trauma, addiction issues, whatever. And no stigma to those poor people who are in that situation and that their children are born with FASD. But from that point in time, that proper care is given to those children. Another sad statistic is approximately 52 to 55% of people with FASD abuse substances and alcohol.
Yeah.
So getting those supports for those people, even before any abuse can happen, because of course, a lot of that abuse and that it's all trauma based. So on my part for operations and that's where I want it right from the get-go, as soon as those kids are pulled from homes, or even with the grandparents and that kind of thing. As soon as we know, as a family, as a society, we start helping those kids.
Well, thanks so much for really deep and meaningful answers. And I acknowledge we're a community with great needs. I know the work you are doing is making the difference both across the community and so deeply with individuals. With 1,000 people, 1,000 ODSP recipients in our community, 10% of the population, 400 dependents attached to them. I don't know how many of them live with FASD, but I'm sure it's a large number. We know with Family Children's Services of Leonard Leeds Grenville, serving a population of about 130,000 people. Smiths Falls representing maybe 7% of that population. 20% of their caseload is families from Smiths Falls. And so it's all so interconnected. And I think you're giving people hope. You give an opportunity. And Rob, you and Shelley, giving those 3 young people nurturing and love, an opportunity that would not have otherwise existed. And you look at where they are today, it's because of all that and because of your passion and purpose and changing the world for them. And I'm so appreciative of the passion you take and spread that far and wide. And what you're saying, what happens here can change the world. And you guys are literally doing that. So the needs are there. Keep going, doing what you're doing, and we'll do what we can to support you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation. As for your ask, which is a very good one, I think given that we are missing a couple of members tonight, we will defer and put it on the agenda for our next meeting. But I do think it is a very worthy cause that is worth some more discussion and probably support around this horseshoe. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, so moving right along in our agenda, priority issue B would be the healing circle. However, Councillor McGuire was intending to speak to that and is not able to be with us this evening. So I will defer that. Perhaps we could put it on the agenda for next meeting and he can have that opportunity to speak then. So given that, we'll move on to our final priority issue of the evening. Treat accessibly. Is everybody around this horseshoe familiar, or do we need a little refresher of what treat accessibly entails? Everybody okay with it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so started a little bit of thinking and planning for this year. If we are, firstly, do we want to participate in Treat Accessibly again this year? Do we think that's something that we want to do? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So
Still
I'm
the
seeing...
signs somewhere?
Eh?
You still have the signs? Some, or they were...
I think we still have a few. I still have a few, I think. They're available again at Remax and at Canadian Tire. And I just actually received an email not too long ago from Treat Accessibly. And they will be available as of mid-October. And there's one other location that they will be available at. However, they're not at liberty to say what that is yet. And I will make sure that you know as soon as I know. Joanne Plant, who's our communications expert at the town, has graciously offered to put a newsletter together for the schools to raise awareness there and have those students take that home and show it to their parents and show them what Treat Accessibly is and possibly participate. So we'll thank her for that input. There is a website, treataccessibly.com. It's all small letters. It's all one word. And through that website, you are actually able to print your own sign if you can't access one otherwise. So that might be an option for some of those students as well. One of the things that we'll have to think about in the next couple of weeks is communication. I was thinking maybe putting a little awareness piece on Smiths Falls website on the town website if we're in agreement with that. Is that something that, yeah? I know that the radio also might be something to look at as well. Things like the Smiths Falls Journal. I don't know if it would be possible to put a small article in journal.
You may be watching.
Prior to that event, and your TV also, I have done interviews with them in the past and would be willing to do so again if that's something we would like to do. So just some things to think about. And I know it's only the end of September, but Halloween will come quite quickly. Time flies. So we'll start the awareness and the planning now. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, ways that they think to promote Treat Accessibly? Anybody have any input? No? Seeing none. So we'll put that in place at this time with Joanne. And again, thank you very much to her. And really do encourage you to visit that website. There's also some information on there that would be worth a read. I think that will wrap up our Corey has a question.
Just want to give a plug for what the DBA is doing also for trick or treating. On the 29th, I think it is, they're doing a parade starting at Town Hall Bandstand and going downtown. And then downtown businesses are doing trick or treating. They'll have a candy corn in their window if they're participating. So at least the parade part will be accessible, and most likely all of the businesses.
A Scalibration, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Scalibration, I think.
That sounds like a wonderful event, and I believe it was last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Banko, but I believe you were at the bandstand handing out candy last year as well.
It was someone who looked like me.
Okay.
In a costume.
Perhaps a costume was involved. So just some things to think about there. Anybody else have anything to add? Seeing none? Oh, Mayor Panko.
Just maybe thinking of our upcoming meetings, and Rob made a bell go off my head, and just with me talked about the DTC, the disability tax credit. And I think it might be something that'd be good for us to have a presentation discussion on, because I think the importance of even people with modest incomes and relying on social assistance filing tax returns. to ensuring they are getting everything they are entitled to. And I was thinking about this last fall, because last fall, the federal government came out with a $500 rent supplement to everybody who under a certain income threshold, which probably would have, let's say probably 40% of our community might have qualified. But if you weren't filing a tax return, you didn't get the money. So there's $500 anybody could have had, almost anybody, but very few people got, because if you didn't file a tax return, you don't get that money. Same thing for the climate action money, the GST, Trillium, all this stuff. And I think it's sometimes people don't always take advantage of what's out there. And the disability tax credit is a big one, because especially for families who have someone who would qualify for the disability tax credit, and Rob's experience, and I think Jane mentioned as well, very consistent. Well, the first time you try, you're not likely going to get it. And if you give up at that point, you may never get it. And it can make a significant difference, and it goes retroactive as well. So I know a family's got a daughter who lives with disabilities, and it was, I think she was 6 before they actually got the disability tax credit, and it was retroactive, of course. So the tax savings coming, that chunk of money, as Rob mentioned, really helped them do things they couldn't otherwise maybe have done. So things like that, I think, would be good for a session. Another one, and I just know from my professional life, is a registered disability savings plan. Very few people know about this. But for people who are living with disabilities, especially those who are adults or low income, the amount of money available is quite considerable. And even without contributing to the plan, the government would put in $1,500 a year, retroactive to the date you qualify for the disability tax credit. Or as far back, I think, 2009. So someone could get $15 times $1,500. You can't utilize the money right away. It's a savings plan where it's got to be in there for at least 10 years before you draw it out. But for later in life, it provides a great degree of security. But again, it's not very well utilized, because most people are not aware of it. So I think there's things out there we can maybe help inform the public through this forum.
I think that is a good thing to do, to raise that awareness, and perhaps we could look at, maybe at our next meeting, we could look at some ways that we could contribute to that and bring that awareness forward. And as you say, maybe a presentation on the DTC would be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have wrapped up our proceedings for tonight. If anyone has anything further? No? Seeing none? Okay, so we will move on. We have no correspondence items this evening, as well as no in-camera issues this evening. So we'll move on and discuss our next meeting date. And I'll turn that discussion over to Director Clark.
So just as I was putting the notes together, I recognize that we've got some budgeting coming up. If we want to do a survey to get some information about accessibility updates that we may want to be focusing on across the town, we're probably going to need to get that information as soon as possible. So I took the liberty, because I also have had good experience having conversations with Rob, and I was paying attention, but I also was drafting a survey. So you guys look at that shortly after this meeting is over. So I would suggest if we could do a meeting October 22nd. So that's I can't remember which Tuesday it is, but
4 weeks from now.
4 weeks from now. So it's about the right time. But if we can get a survey done ahead of October 22nd, we could present potentially something to council in early November. And that would be ideal. So if we can get some rapid fire responses from you guys based on the very draft, to just be very draft. What you'll be receiving in about half an hour is very draft. But if I can get some comments and feedback on that, then we can get it wrapped up and hopefully get it out in the next week or so, have it open for a couple of weeks, do some really good promotion around it, get as much information as we can back, and then I can bring something at the next meeting, October 22nd, to review. we could sort of package it up and then shuffle it up to council. More importantly, and the rapidity with which I think we need to get this done, is that it will give some credence and direction to some of the public works and community services requests that might be coming forward. And so then we can also say that we've had community consultation. Some of it we may already be planning on, but it would also help us when we're trying to convince council to fund us. Wink. So if that works, October 22nd, there's a bit of work to do in between now and then from members of the committee and for myself as well. And then we can hopefully have something ready to roll for council in early November. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody good with an October 22nd, 6 p.m. here?
One quick question. For that meeting, can we make sure that the delegation part goes on that though, please? At some point?
What do you mean? Sorry,
Yeah.
say that again?
From tonight?
Yeah.
Can we just make sure that gets added to the agenda?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Chair Bigley and I go through what agenda items we've identified. So the deferred item from Councilor McGuire will also be on that. It's not solely about that, but I did think if we want to do the survey and we want to move forward, that's an important priority item. So
Yep, absolutely.
We move fast. That's good.
I'll forget otherwise. So gotta get it done. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Director Clark. So we'll put that on our calendars for October 22nd, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. it is. Okay, so I think we can adjourn our proceedings tonight, if everybody's comfortable.
Mover.
Mover, please. Courtney. Could I have a seconder? Stephanie, please. All in favor? Motion carried. So we will see everybody on October 22nd. Until then, take care, everybody.
That was fast.
Official.